All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone to this info session for the Cultural Leadership Training Program, which is a program that has been led by the Arts and Science Council for the past 20 years, which is hard to believe. But here we are, gearing up for what will be the 21st class of the CLT program here in Charlotte. And so, what we're going to do today is just walk through some of the program components, what to expect, different elements of the application, so you can be prepared to get that underway. We will also have some time for a conversation with four of our program graduates or soon to be graduates. And then we'll have some space at the end for Q&A. So as I said before we hit record, if you have questions, we'll have some space to answer those along the way at the end. But please feel free to drop anything in chat so we don't miss it if it occurs to you midway through. So with that, we will get underway, and my advanced doesn't want to work as per usual. So here we go. So just a little bit about ASC. ASC is obviously our shorthand for the Arts and Science Council. It is Charlotte-Mecklenburg's local arts agency, founded in 1958. So it's been with us for quite some time. You'll see here ASC's mission. There's just such a wealth of ways that the Arts and Science Council supports our community more broadly, in addition to the creative community specifically. So that's everything from grants to organizations, individual creatives, and advocacy work about the value and benefits of the cultural sector. And then things like training and capacity building, which is where this program lives in that broader portfolio. So we'll talk a little bit about the origins of the CLT program in particular. Really, this program is grounded in the idea of how can we, as an arts and cultural sector, identify, equip, prepare, and then help actually place individuals in the community who are interested in joining nonprofit boards. Obviously, this focus is specifically on the arts and cultural sector, but I like to start with some of these thoughts about why it might be a good thing to join a board. Some of you may have already served on boards in different capacities, but there's so lots of reasons, and our panelists will address a bit of this later on in the conversations. But it's such a great way to deepen your engagement, certainly as a community member. It can be a really powerful way to develop and grow your own strengths and skill sets. It's a very cool way to meet other people, right, who value and care about things that you do. And so both as a board member more broadly, and then through a program like this, I think that ability to meet and connect with folks in the community who share similar interests and want to give back is a really valuable byproduct. And then certainly this, at the end of the day, it's all rooted in the mission, right? So your passion for an organization or a cause is something that's often really important to us as individuals. It sort of makes us a whole person, right? We might have a professional background or commitment that is meaningful and certainly, something we dedicate a lot of time and energy to, but often partnering that with community involvement through board leadership can be a great way to really deepen that connection, deepen the passion for something that you care about that may be outside of your professional sphere. And then certainly like serving as an advocate and ambassador for the cause, the mission, the organization is a really cool way to express that commitment. So often we get questions about how board service is different from volunteering, right? There's all kinds of ways that we can volunteer. It's often, volunteering tends to be more time-bound, more project-centered. So, if you're volunteering in the cultural sector, you might be doing like, being an usher at a performance, right, for a theater company or a music organization. You might be helping with a youth education program out in the community. You might be, supporting kind of on a volunteer level in an administrative way, right? Like helping an organization's leadership work on a specific project. The difference really is that board service is a way to deepen that leadership commitment. So it is definitely, I would say, a level up from a traditional volunteer opportunity. There generally is a much more comprehensive time commitment. And that also, that may be just in terms of number of hours in a given month or year, but also it's usually a multi-year commitment that can vary based on the organization. But often you're making a deeper, longer term commitment to a mission or organization that you care about. There are usually financial commitment expectations. Again, those vary widely based on organizations, their size, their life stage, what their business model looks like. But generally, there is some expectation that board members are contributing financially. We can all imagine if these are nonprofit organizations going out to other funders to request support, it's really helpful to be able to say, our board is behind us, right? Our board is giving financially and invested in this mission before we start asking others to contribute. We'll talk a little bit about in the program, like understanding those expectations so that we can really navigate to the best fit based on each person's individual circumstance. And then another thing we cover in the program is this sort of expectations from a legal standpoint, right? In the state of North Carolina, in the US, right, a nonprofit governing board is really like the ultimate arbiter leader of the organization. So yes, you may have a talented, highly skilled professional leader for an organization, but in many ways the board is ultimately accountable for the future of that organization. And that's something we cover and speak to a lot during the program, just so everybody's really clear about what you're getting into from a leadership standpoint and what that entails. The good news is that in North Carolina, there are lots of protections for board members from a legal standpoint. And so it's not anything to be like freaked out about, but just something good to understand before you say yes to these kinds of opportunities. So a little bit specifically about the ASC CLT program. I mentioned at the outset, the program is just over 20 years old. We launched in 2005. The impetus behind the creation of the program was multifold, right? Like now, Charlotte, even then, was already becoming like a hub for newcomers. We were seeing lots of folks moving to this market, back to this market. And so, on one hand, the sector and leaders in the arts and cultural sector were saying, like, look at all these great new leaders moving into our community, and how do we want to connect with them and help them navigate into these kinds of volunteer leadership roles? Perhaps they've been involved in board roles or volunteer roles in other communities, and how can we be that bridge for that to happen here? Um, we also wanted, again, if you're recruiting new individuals into the sector in a leadership capacity, we also wanted to make sure that we were preparing those individuals to really kind of hit the ground running and be as equipped as possible when they start serving in a board role. And so that was another motivation. Um, and, I think too, just this broader idea of creating this network and connectivity across leaders, like in the community who have served in this capacity, is a really important consideration, and something we I think, shepherded a lot over the years of the program. So, we have over 500, getting close to 600 program alumni who have participated across all the years, coming from a really wide range of organizations, businesses, corporate backgrounds, civic, you name it. And so creating space and opportunity for those folks to connect with one another as alumni of the program. Practically many of them are also doing that as they move into board service, right? Because there's often folks on boards in the arts and cultural sector who have also participated in this program. And so being able to have a class each year who develop connections with each other, but also are potentially like building those connections with others across the sector as volunteers is really powerful. It's a great way to expand a network and to build opportunities for partnership and collaboration and sharing and all that good stuff. This program is open to individuals who live and or work primarily in Mecklenburg County. That's primarily because ASC's primary service area is Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. Also, the organizations that we're working with are all Mecklenburg County-based arts and cultural nonprofits. There are a lot of great regional organizations around us as well, but our primary focus is partnering with arts, culture, science, history organizations that are based in Mecklenburg County. So a little bit about our program structure. you are here today to learn about the application and review process. We do ask that folks go through this process, and largely that's to sort of for you to really be thoughtful about why this is the right fit for you at this time, like what you want to get from your participation, how you want to contribute. It just sort of gives folks again a layer of intentionality coming into a volunteer opportunity like this and a training opportunity like this. So logistically, we do that across 9 program sessions. We basically run on like a traditional academic calendar. So we start in September and go through May. All of the sessions are on Thursday afternoons. So we've tried to structure it so you might miss a little bit of the workday at the end of the afternoon, but it's sort of bridging that work after work time and hopefully not taking too much away from like your in-person online, right, work time on Thursdays. But those are roughly like 3-hour sessions. A few things that I think make this program unique. I mentioned that absolutely there is a through line of best practice and governance, right? The goal is to equip future leaders with kind of what you need to know and understand going into a board role, questions to ask, things to be aware of, nuance and dynamics, right, as it relates to board service. So there's this like academic through line, which is, kind of the core of the program. What I think makes this program a little different from others I've seen in different markets is that we also layer on 2 additional components. One is a very immersive, hands-on, I would say exploratory approach to really kind of understanding what's even out there in the arts and cultural sector and ways that you can be engaged. We move each session to a different venue. So we are moving around the community, hopefully introducing you to spaces that might not be as familiar to you. And that's intentional in the design, right? Because it helps folks start to be aware of what's right here in their backyard, but also as you think about how you want to engage, the types of ways you might want to serve, just physically being in different spaces and learning about different organizations and opportunities really helps, I think, make that deciding process when we get to that stage a little clearer. Um, we also, as a part of that sort of experiential offering, allow participants to observe, sit in on actual board meetings across the sector. All of the organizations in our cohort generally are private nonprofits. They do not have to open up their board meetings, right, for public participation or review. And so it's actually a really unique opportunity that you get as a participant in this program to physically or virtually sit in on meetings and really see like what it looks like in real life. Get a sense of the culture, get a sense of like what organizations are discussing, the people, right? All that good stuff. And so it's a really valuable element that we don't publicize a lot, but it's, I think, and our graduates may tell you, is a really cool add-on in terms of like building that sense of like what's the right fit for you. And then about midway through the program, we really began to shift focus to okay, right? We're like learning, we're growing, we're connecting, we're exploring. Okay, what is it going to look like to physically find the match that's right for you? And so we have, a couple of program sessions that are specific to that intent. And, in the spring in particular, we are working, like I'm working hands-on, one-on-one with participants in the class to really help them navigate, like, these are the options. What are you thinking? How can we help you connect? And so the goal is like by the time that the class is graduating, you know where you're going to go, right? So you have had sort of some supported, um, like thought, right, as you're navigating that versus a lot of programs I've seen. It's like, we're going to do like a few classes on board training and board development and best practice. And then we'll maybe have like a social where you get to meet some organizations and drop your business cards in a fishbowl, right? This is much more facilitated and supported, and I think really helps folks kind of decide what for them is going to be the best fit. So I think we're almost at the end of our slides. These are just, I want to highlight the application components. I don't think this is like an exhaustive painful process. But there are some things that are a part of the application, and I really just think it's helpful to know it up front, so that you can be prepared when you open that link to know what you need to do to complete the application. So there's just basic contact information, inputs, fields, right, about who are you, and we ask you to upload a resume. There are some questions about like past involvement in community or professional ways, and so you have an opportunity to talk about that a bit. There are two narrative questions. These are not rocket science, right? I mentioned this earlier. This is really just kind of what do you expect from this? What do you hope to get from it? Talk a little bit about your past involvement in different ways and how, that might play a role in kind of what you want to do next. I'm gonna like time out. I wish I had a bell, right? This next one, that because this is usually what trips people up at the last minute. We ask for two letters of recommendation. Say that again, two letters of recommendation. This is the thing not to wait until the last minute to do because it's due in June and someone's always on vacation, right? So I've been doing this for a long time and just always want to call out the letters of recommendation. Again, these do not need to be like 6-page long testimonials of your greatness, right? But just some additional like context about who are you, like what are, why is this important to you? What does this person know about, your background or interest in volunteering or giving back or passion for the cultural sector, right? You name it. It's like to help amplify your responses in your application. It can be a supervisor, it can be a colleague, it can be someone you know from a community setting. I mean, it might be someone that you know from, some sort of educational experience you've had. Cast the net broadly, but this is something that I would encourage you to think about in advance, because it may take a day or two or more, right, to get those back from someone. And that's a piece that will hold up an application if we don't have the letters at the end. Again, the rest is more just like FYI, right? We do have we'll have some like basic checkbox kinds of things around interests and skill sets and demographics. There was again a space, the program dates are already on the website, but we will reiterate that in the application and then really ask for your commitment. So you will submit all of that by our deadline of June 22nd or June 26th. My apologies. And then we will move into a process with the selection committee, which is composed of program alumni throughout the years. The program alumni will read and score your applications as submitted, and then we will follow up with individuals to schedule an interview. You'll have an interview, maybe a 30-minute or so interview. These again are not like big time blocks with two members of the selection committee, opportunity to sort of talk about your interests, for them to hear more from you, for you to ask them questions. And so that will be the last stage. And then the committee meets in August to make the final selection for the class. So those are the application components, a bit more about the process. I've added here the program fee. This is, developed sort of looking at leadership programs both across Charlotte and beyond. We do have partial scholarships available, so do not make the fee a deterrent or a barrier. You'll see there's a space in the application if you would like to request some scholarship support. Often, employers will cover that fee because they really understand that this can be a really powerful investment in you as a leader and building your network and sort of building your leadership capacity as a board member in addition to your professional scope. So if you have questions about the fee or ways to navigate that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to have those conversations. All right. That was a lot. If you have questions and you've had them along the way, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to I'm going to stop sharing my screen and bring us to our panel. And Brittany, I'm spotlighting you. Welcome. So what I love to do as a part of this session is to create space for you to actually hear from folks who've participated in the program. It's way more interesting than listening to me talk about all the mechanics and the process. And this will give you an opportunity to ask some questions as well about their experience. And so I'm going to tee them up with a few questions. and then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. So what panelists I would like you to share by way of introduction is just name, any organization, professional affiliation, and you know, serving on a board, about to start serving on a board or committee, a little bit about that current state from a volunteer standpoint, and then we will go from there. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to call on you so we don't look at each other strangely to see who goes next. So I'm just going in order of my screen. So, Stephen, I'm going to start with you.
Hi, I'm Steve Paramati. I'm with Edifice Construction. Before participating in the class, I had no board knowledge, went into it completely cold. I'm currently serving on the board of Jazz Art Charlotte, have been almost immediately upon graduating from the class. Um, yeah, is there anything else?
No, we're going to get to more, but thank you for that
Okay.
intro. All right, Andy, you're up.
Hey y'all, my name's Andy Go. I'm a full service podcast production and consultant business owner based here in Charlotte. And I'm actually part of the current class that's graduating next month in June. And so I'm actually still technically in the class right now. But I can definitely speak to the quality of the program that it is and the level of value that it provides if you're interested in any way in board serviceship, particularly as it pertains to the arts and cultural sector here. I'd actually had board service experience in the past, but I didn't really know what all went into being on a board. And as Katherine said, it's a lot more in depth than just general volunteering. And so having an idea of what's expected of you, what's required of you, and what to keep in mind when you go into these things is really valuable. So if you're considering it in any way, or if somebody has approached you to be on a board, I definitely say go and try and go through this training first, because it'll give you a better idea of what you're going to need to do once you actually get in to the board serviceship part.
Cool, Andy. Krista.
Okay. I'm Krista Glassburn. I'm an operating partner of Harbor Capital, and I am, like Andy, still in the program technically for another month and a half or something. But I've had corporate board experience, but very little. I was on a university board before and a community college board before, but I am now serving on two Charlotte area boards. So I've joined Queen City Robotics, which is a program for youth, getting them involved in STEM activities and robotic programs. And then the second is We Rock Charlotte, which is a program that works with music lessons and organizing music events in the area.
Thank you. All right, Brittany.
Yes. So my name is Brittany Allgood. I am a state and local tax manager at Greer Walker CPAs and Advisors in the Uptown Charlotte area. I am currently serving as the treasurer on the board of directors at Matthews Playhouse. I started working with the board right before graduating alongside Stephen. We were in the same cohort and quickly transitioned to the treasurer. And I am also a board observer for the Levine Museum of the New South. So it's been interesting and busy, to say the least. Prior to going through this process, I was like Stephen, cold, had no idea about what it took to be on a board of directors or even how to initiate that process. And so ASC's program definitely helped pave the way for that.
Thank you. So I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit because a couple of you have started down this path, but like how has your participation in the program either amplified, things that you may have already known about board service or prior experience, or, if you have specific examples of like how it's really helped prepare you to go into these roles coming out of the program. All right, Stephen.
So the program's pretty all encompassing. And the thing that I keep coming back to is it reinforces what the role of the board is. And in many respects, I had a misconception of what that was. And I don't want to cloud anything because you guys are about to take the class, but it really helps establish, okay, here's my role, here's what I should be doing for the board. And for instance, at Jazz Arts, we are in the process of rewriting our bylaws because the bylaws are ambiguous and it really for the long-term health of the company, it really needs to be concrete and we need to define roles within the company. So for me, it was extremely helpful in understanding what I should be doing in service because it's all about serving these nonprofits as far as I'm concerned.
Krista.
Yeah. So I think the other thing that this training really taught me is the idea that a lot of nonprofits are in different times and spaces of their lifespans. So the difference of boards that have been around for a long time versus new boards, or who the leadership is of the board and the people on the board change the dynamic of the board. Um, that I think was really interesting to me. So, to not name names, but my two boards are very different in both their structure, in the executive leadership, in the way that they plan their strategic plan for a year to 5 years out. Like they could not be more different, serving really great needs and have really good support, but couldn't be more different.
Brittany, Andy, anything you want to add? I can move to another question.
Yes, I'll just say the other thing that helped was understanding what you needed to look for in a board prior to making that commitment. Because again, like Krista said, every board is different. Um, and the differences can be minimal or very extreme. And so really understanding that, knowing what to look for, what questions to ask, what's being said versus what's not being said, I think all of that matters and understanding if it's a working board or if it is truly just volunteerism and you helping, because your ability to be able to be present in whatever it is that's going on with the organization is very important and critical to the success of the organization in the long run.
Yeah.
And Catherine, if I may add, I don't know if you're bringing back the Strengths Finder thing for this next class, but I know that our class was the first one that you'd done this on, and I actually thought it was really useful. Essentially, it's an exercise to figure out what your strengths are, and I thought it was valuable in the context of when you apply to these boards, they actually are looking for different types of people to be on the board. They want legal representation, they want accounting representation, or they might want somebody who just is good at connecting people and asking for money. Like there's all sorts of different ways to serve on a board, and just because you're don't have an accounting or a legal background doesn't mean that you can't serve on a board or be a valuable member of that board. And that's what I'm figuring out because that's neither of my backgrounds, but there's still a place for me based on the strengths that we, found out and kind of like identified early in the process. And then I was able to take that and have a better idea of how I can bring that to a board, which was really valuable throughout the whole process for me.
I would add too that, and Catherine mentioned it, it was very helpful for me to go to board meetings and understand just what was already said that, yeah, boards are different. And what Andy just said, what your role may be different and how you can help may be different. And I just think it's important to find the right fit. And you might not want to be on the board. You might just want to volunteer or be on a committee or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. So I'm gonna ask like a fun question before we pivot to some advice that you might share. We talked about like, and it's a nice piggyback, Stephen, for what you just shared. We talked about kind of the different elements of the program and that more experiential, but just to give folks a little sampler of what that feels like. Did you have like a favorite sort of cultural moment, sort of as you exploratory moment as you went through the program, just to give folks some ideas of what that looks like?
I really like the first day. Well, what hammered home to me in my need to serve my community is on the first day, it was an introduction, and then you threw us out into Charlotte on a scavenger hunt. And I swear, I thought that everybody had known more about Charlotte than I did, and like nobody knew where any of these places were. I'm like, I know where that is. And so yeah, I mean, but that just hammered home that I know this town. I should be helping. So for me, that was it.
And I'll add to that because Stephen and I were actually in the same group. And I am a native of Charlotte, and I could not help one bit. Um, so that experience was definitely an eye opener, but it goes to show that there's so much to Charlotte that we don't know. Being a
That's right.
native of Charlotte, I don't view or navigate the town as a tourist. So I'm not, I don't embed myself in all the museums and the cultural aspects of Charlotte. I just, go to school, work, all those things. And so it was nice. It was an eye opener. And to, know that there's people that were in my group, like Stephen, that knew more about Charlotte than I did. It was very beneficial. Um, we weren't out there all night.
Hey, we still didn't win. We still didn't win.
That was a cool experience, though. I was with a group of people that were all from Charlotte. I'm not originally from Charlotte. And so it was a cool experience. We didn't win either. But I really thought my team knew everything so I suspect we won. I'm just saying.
A little competition goes a long way.
you know but the thing I think about the program the most is that there were like two aspects of it. So we were somewhere else every week, which really highlighted to me all of the different programs that exist in the community, and we didn't go to all of them, of course, but and then there was always a learning session, which was really good. The thing I realized in the end, and going back to Steven's point, is like I went to some board interviews or, board meetings of other groups, and it was very clear to me by the end of the 8 or 9 weeks or so, or, sessions, that which groups I needed to be part of and which ones I didn't. And of course, there were a plenty that I really wanted to. Like the end of this, I was like, I joined two, but I probably could have joined four. If I just loved them. Like the people that were involved in these programs are just so impressive. Matthew's Playhouse is one, Brittany. Like I just loved everything about some of these programs, and so I think that's a really good thing because it makes me now. I'm on a lot of different things. I'm going to a lot of things. I'm taking my kids to a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have done before. So
I'll just say that I had a similar experience to Steve in the scavenger hunt being like probably my favorite single memory. And I guess hopefully again that's something that's also part of this next class because it was a lot of fun. And I had the same sort of feeling as Steven, where I was like we were walking around looking for these cultural, landmarks all around Uptown, and there's of course so many to find. And if you know what you're looking for, it's really a fun way to talk about the city, the history, the culture, and all the different things that make the city special. And again, to my earlier point of like figuring out what I'm good at, my group was more accountants and lawyers, and that's fine. But I was clearly the one who had experience in the actual arts space. I've worked for the Beckler and I've worked for the McCall Center and the Arts and Science Council as well. So I knew a lot of these things, and it made me realize while I was on the walk that, yeah, this is something that I can do well, and it's a place that I probably should be contributing to. The one difference, though, is that my team did win because we're good like that.
we'll see.
Right. I always find that building teams, at the outset with a little splash of competition, like goes a long way. Um, so I want to close our panel conversation just by asking each of you to, if you had like one little nugget of advice that you would share with people who are considering the program or actually participating going forward, what would that be?
I would say definitely take advantage because, like Catherine said, these boards are not open to the public. So we get permission to attend the board meetings. And I think I did. I think I intended to do three, and I only did two. I wish I had done more, honestly. because I just would have learned more. I think that was the most important thing that I got out of it is, real boots on the ground. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I'll echo that, but also I should have probably done a better job of really networking and really getting better at the class at knowing our class. Like these sessions are intense. You show up, you go to the activity and you go to the learning part and then it's kind of over. And like so I met people but superficially, right? Like I should have probably done a better job because I do expect that I will run into people all over the place that were part of these programs, and it's nice to be able to say like, oh, I know someone from my class went to there, or I know someone on that board. So probably I should have done a better job of that, but I did enjoy the people that I met and the boards that I sat on for sure.
Yeah.
I'd say if you're in the position to do this program, obviously there's an investment. As Catherine mentioned, it's a lot more accessible than just one number. But if you're in the position to do this, it's definitely something that you should strongly consider because Charlotte's a growing city. We're evolving every year. Relationships and networks that you build within this class are going to serve you for years to come. And you're also going to have an opportunity to have a hand in shaping the future of the city from an arts and cultural perspective. I think that's just so cool about doing this program and about being involved in board serviceship in general, but particularly as it relates to the arts and cultural sector. There's so many deserving organizations, dynamic organizations, places that really do make this city special. And to be able to have some say or agency in one or two organizations is a real privilege and something that shouldn't be taken lightly and should be taken very seriously. And this program really helps crystallize why it's important to be an active and informed member of a board.
Hey, Brittany, bring us home.
Yes, I'll add again, like it's only about 9 sessions over a period of time. And although, things come up and you might have to miss, I think I had to miss like one or two due to work travel. But I'd say, if at all possible, try not to miss any of those sessions. I mean, every session is different. It tackles different highlights and touch points that need to be addressed and discussed to better help you. And I think with that being in alignment with understanding that and knowing how to um, related to who you are as an individual currently is where you see yourself going in the future, because that will help ensure that you are aligning yourself with an organization that you can truly be an asset to. So I think just being very in tune with who you are and taking all that knowledge in will definitely help you in the organization.
Thank you all. See, our alumni just keep on giving, right? We love to keep this group connected. And, in addition to opportunities like this info session, we do bring alumni back for a few of the program sessions just to, again, hear their perspective and sort of lived experience. And so I think that's another important way that as participants in the program you're not only getting again kind of the academic and the experiential, but you're hearing like these real life reflections and experiences from folks who are out there doing the work, right, in real life. And so I think that's another important asset. So thank you all. I want to open it up for questions for me or for any of our panelists. You can drop them in the chat or just come off mute. So does anybody have questions? And I will start with, I see a question from Jasmine in the chat. But now's your chance, right, to ask that burning question that may be on your mind. So I see a question from Jasmine in the chat asking about, is this beneficial for leaders building their own boards? I would say that the design and intention of this program is to identify individuals in the community who want to serve as board members for existing arts and cultural organizations. that's part of the way that we get such strong support and buy-in from the individual organizations that partner with us every year. I mentioned, the board matching component, which is a big part of the program, and we have a whole session on board speed dating that really like helps actually physically in the room connect participants with organizational leaders, both board and staff. And so truly the goal is to equip, prepare, and place individuals for existing board service opportunities in the community. Like, yes, you will, learn good foundational governance principles that you could apply in other spaces, but I will say that, and there's certainly been participants who have taken learnings from this program and use them in ways in addition to serving on boards. But just I would reiterate that the program is really intended to place folks right with existing boards. And I see training is open to all, attracts corporate and professional. So Andy, I think addressed this a little bit, this question about speaking to the demographics of your cohorts. Are there artists? Are there other kinds of skill sets? I think we would probably categorize Andy in that creative space as a small business owner. But I'll let you guys answer that because yes, the cohorts are all quite mixed. Again, remembering the intention of the program is, bringing folks in who really want to move into board roles at the community level.
I can go ahead and yeah speak to that a little bit because I don't represent Bank of America or KPMG or any of those other institutions. I'm a small business owner, have been for the past 7 years. Consider myself a creative, a musician, a podcaster, photographer. So I think that there is representation for people who are purely creative. This program is intended for nonprofit service on a board of an arts and cultural sector specifically. So not United Way, not Humane Society. Although the training you get here would serve you if you were in any of those boards. This program is going to give you exposure specifically to arts and cultural institutions. What I've learned is that again that these arts and cultural institutions do want lawyers, you know. Accountants, very professional minded people to make up the greater sum of their boards, but they don't want just that. They understand that having a diversity on the board is very important as well. And so they don't want just doctors or just lawyers or whomever, just corporate approved people. I think a good, healthy board, as I've learned through this process, embraces the diversity of leadership that is available to it. And if you're a leader, but it's more of it as an artist or a community connector or, something that doesn't have a hard MBA degree attached to it, there's still a place for you, as long as you're showing up and doing the work and you're passionate about the mission that the organization represents. There's definitely still a place for anybody that has leadership qualities.
Anyone else want to chime in on that? And otherwise, I'll move us to the next question. Steve, you and Brittany were in the same class, and I know you're both coming out of more kind of quote corporate
Yep.
spaces to some degree, but maybe you could speak a little bit just about like the cohort broadly, like your experience.
Brittany.
Yes, so our group was a very diverse group as well. There were some that were in the professional setting as well as that were also in arts professionally as well. And I'd say just culturally, all blending the different, excuse me, demographics together, it just made the experience a lot more inviting and refreshing, just because we all come from different backgrounds. And so it allowed for a lot of the sessions that we attended to always give us a different viewpoint. Especially, I am very type A. I have an agenda versus you're dealing with someone who is very much in tune with their creativity. They don't have a list. They go with the
You called
flow.
me out, but it's fine. We weren't in the same
Yeah.
class, but I know you called me out.
But it allowed for, you to just kind of like cut back on your day to day and really embrace yourself. And so I enjoyed that. The fact that we had a very diverse cohort, it was very rewarding for me.
One of the things I think stands out in my head as a memory now that Brittany's talking about it is like the first session. So sitting there at this big U-sized table and having everyone introduce themselves. And there was a chunk of people, and Andy maybe doesn't remember this the way I do, but like sort of straight across from me at the table, there were like five people that were definitely like lawyers from the top law firms, and then there was a couple that were bankers from the top bank firm, banking companies, and then there was sort of from there all around was this mixture of like the school system or the medical system or and it was an interesting thing. So yeah, I mean, and again, like we have so many unique board opportunities in this town. One of the board meetings I went to was the symphony. I thought for sure I really wanted to be part of the symphony board, and when I went there and walked away, they're really lovely people, and I think that's an excellent thing. But I didn't feel like I could bring anything to that. It was more of a like. Um, they are stepping through their approval processes because they're very professional organization. Whereas, some of the other board meetings that I went to or talked to those groups of people, they just really wanted people who were excited about what they did. And so I don't think you need to have a corporate background to be excited about what
Yeah.
they're doing. Um, but you need to think about the time that they want you to put in and that you can do that. But I don't think it's strictly for a corporate professional.
Thank you all for sharing that. And in my experience, right, like meeting and knowing and working with 20 classes now, right? I mean, I think we've seen like that breadth of experience and background all coming together. And the cool thing, I think, is that everybody that like in some way, and we talk about this a little bit at the orientation, like there is this through line, right? This connection that everybody has a connection to the arts or this or sort of STEAM or STEM or history, heritage or whatever it is. And so, even those folks that you might say, oh, that's an attorney or that's a banker, right? Often those individuals have really rich like arts backgrounds too, right? They've just gone a different professional path. And so I think what is very cool and is a great way to sort of, again, we've talked about like meeting people that are interesting, that are aligned with, how you want to give back and serve, is finding that common ground. And I think that's important, in boards as well, right? That you've got different voices and perspectives and experiences. And so we try to mirror that, right, in the program. All right. I'm going to do just one or two more questions. So I see a question. Is it okay not to have a strong background in volunteer work yet? Growing as a leader and getting more involved. So yes, we do ask, there are some questions around sort of your history of community involvement in the application. We do expand that to be both kind of community, individual, and professional ways that perhaps that you've been involved in from a more volunteer standpoint in programs, initiatives, things like that. And so people give all kinds of examples of what that looks like for them. um, I think I would say just in my experience and recognizing what I hear from like the selection committee year over year is like I think there's a sense that yes, they want to see that someone has a passion for and a connection to service and being engaged at the community level. I would say err on the side of just being candid, right? If you're working on the application and you feel like you don't have like this lengthy volunteer resume, I have seen individuals who perhaps did not have that, but they were able to really talk about the why. Right? Steve is raising his hand. They were able to really talk about the why, because I think there's also a recognition that we engage at, like we talked about organizational life stages, but that can also be true as individuals, right? We engage, re-engage, disengage, right, at different times in our lives for different reasons. And so my counsel just in terms of the application is just like be transparent about that, right? Like talk about like why you care, why this matters. Um, what you hope to achieve through this program. And then there is a second question that is really about expectations. And so I think from that standpoint, perhaps someone doesn't have again, the lengthy resume as a volunteer, but they're able to really demonstrate that they kind of understand what this program is about, what they hope to get from it, um, sort of what they're getting into broadly, right, in the sense of serving at like a higher leadership level and as a volunteer. And I think that also can go a long way. I'm also I'll plug this as a part of answering that question, and I think this is also on the website, but I'm always happy to take a look at a draft for applications as long as I get those in a reasonable time frame prior to the deadline. Um, and so if you're curious about like the way you're thinking about answering a question or what you're asking someone for a recommendation, language you might be using, I'm happy to support that kind of one-on-one. So don't hesitate to reach out because I can offer some perspective based on having sat with selection committees for the past 20 years and the types of things they look for and questions they may ask. So take advantage of that opportunity if it, works for you. Would you all add anything? Steve, you raised your hands like as an
No, no,
example.
yeah, I'm the guy with the very limited volunteer resume. So yeah, yeah. So I mean, I didn't have much of a resume in it, and for me personally, it was just time. I didn't really have time. I had more time, and it really was time for me to start helping, serving. And I would add though that Katherine is a terrific resource as you progress through. She knows everybody. Katherine, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, definitely a resource if you're considering serving a nonprofit. I would definitely talk to Katherine about it.
Cool. Thank you. Um, do we have any more questions? Because I will wrap us a few minutes early. Give you 5 whole minutes of your Friday back. So I don't see any questions. As Steve said, like, please do, I'm here to be a resource. Like, so please do reach out if you have like a question you didn't ask today or wanted to ask in more detail one-on-one. Happy to help talk through that. Robert helpfully has posted in the chat just the reminder of the link. Our application deadline is June 26th. Um, we will have a copy of this info session up and available for folks who missed it or want to revisit. I mean, I know you want to watch this over again, right? In a week or so. So that will be up if you, or if you know someone who perhaps after this conversation you think, oh, that was interesting. I think I wish so and so had been on the call. That will be available to you as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have questions. Thanks to our panel for joining us. We love our program alumni and all that they do in the community. And happy Friday, everybody. We will see you all hopefully in that application pool coming up.
Thank you, Katherine.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, Brittany.
Thank you so much.